Good morning. If you can see my screen and I go to the admin panel, you'll see I'm already on 2.0.0, and that's because I'm actually running the beta. So the stable will be released on the 15th, but then the beta is already at 2.0. The interface actually looks really cool now, or a lot more different than the current version.
How do you tell what version you're on?
So you go to settings, and then once you're in settings, it'll show you right away. It'll see it at the very bottom. It says version 2.0.0.
Oh yeah, I'm at version 1.123.
Yeah. Are you on the cloud?
No, I'm on the community. I'm self-hosted.
Oh, you're self-hosted. That's right. Okay. Yeah, that won't be ready yet. Not quite yet. Yeah, the cloud one is ready. And I don't know if you saw my video, but if you go to this section in settings called migration report, this will show you all your workflows, and issues related to 2.0 upgrade. So you might want to just kind of review them, make sure everything is okay. And then if you haven't played with this piece yet, this is really cool where you can enable MCP access to your entire n8n instance by turning this on. And then you can now add this to, whatever MCP tool you'd want to use this with. So this is actually, it can be connected to Claude Code or Lovable. Some really cool stuff that they're doing in relation to MCP and broader access. So once you turn this on, what you would want to do is go into any of your workflows. This thing will load. Okay, so if I go to an active, whatever workflow it is, it has to be active, right? So you need to have a published or active check mark here. And now you can enable this to be accessible via the MCP server. So basically that setting will say, hey, this instance is ready to be accessed, and here are the workflows that are available.
Yeah, I have a question because right now I don't have time actually, but every Wednesday call at this time.
That is correct. Yeah. And Karen, where are you from?
I'm from Germany.
Oh, nice. Welcome. Yeah. So this is the normal call. This Wednesday call is for everyone in the community. And then I also have Monday, Tuesday, and Friday calls for our premium members.
I think there's only one call for free members of this call,
which is this call. Yeah. And its topic is just general and n8n for beginners, but we can cover whatever topic you guys want to discuss. Like we're walking Alex through how to differentiate between web and API accounts for various services.
I understand. How long is this call going to take?
This usually we're here for an hour every time. I think
actually I have also some questions to make.
Yeah, go for it.
Because right now I want to build an assistant in n8n for my father, and he has a calendar and he has some context, and I want to automate that for him. And like in Germany we have something called DSGVO. It's like not like in America we can't use, for example, OpenAI or because there are not like I don't know how to explain it, but we have to save compliance and data and this stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of GDPR stuff, I think.
Yeah. And I have to look for alternatives. That's my problem right now.
For calendar or for which piece?
For example, if my father wants to write with the AI, he writes per WhatsApp, and in Germany it's a problem, or per Telegram. In Germany, it's also a problem because we don't have this, it's not allowed actually, except if in WhatsApp we have in Germany API business, then it's maybe allowed, but it costs money.
Right.
So maybe there's an alternative.
What do you want to connect to? Like just Google Calendar?
Google Calendar and, for example, Excel sheet for the contacts, and then Gmail.
Does it have to be Excel, or can you bring it into Google Sheets?
I think it has to be Excel.
Okay. What else do you need to connect to?
Actually, it's up to, but then we have to need to have a business account, right?
Yeah, you need to have
How much does it cost?
I'm not sure. I never have set up a WhatsApp business account.
Understand.
Do you need to connect to WhatsApp just because you need to get the data from it?
Because I need to connect to WhatsApp that the AI can write to the contacts people on WhatsApp.
Oh, I see. Okay, you want to push messages to.
Yeah, right.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, based on what you're describing, another way you can go about it is just, you can use the AI builder here. I don't know if you've ever tried that. If you describe your product here.
I have open source. I think it's not possible.
You're not on the cloud account.
No.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think in 2026, they're going to introduce the AI builder into the self-hosted versions as well as obviously the cloud version. Right now, it's only available on the cloud. So that won't help you there. But yeah, I don't know exactly what you're trying to build. I kind of have an idea, but first thing I do when I'm trying to create a product is I spend time with Claude Code or Claude Web Interface, Alex, in your case. And I will spend some time just writing out the product requirements document, which means you are spending some time thinking through what are the services I need to interact with. In this case, it's an Excel file or Excel in the cloud, Google Calendar, WhatsApp. What are the data models for the incoming data? What are the data models for the outgoing data? And so again, spend some time, if you don't know what a product requirements document is, spend some time with Claude or ChatGPT, helping you understand what that is and why it's important when you're beginning to build a product. And in this case, the product here is a workflow, n8n workflow, but ultimately you're going to be interacting with third-party services, whether it's Google or Microsoft or WhatsApp and others, right? There may be other tools or services you need to interact with. And so going through that exercise of creating a product requirements document, which is something I tell everybody, right? Before you start building, understand what you're building, why you're building it, who you're building it for, what's the data that you're dealing with. Because the more you understand that, the better you're going to have, the better outputs you will have because you already have a plan in place. And that plan isn't meant to be final by any means, but it's a solid starting point for you and everyone else involved to understand what you're building, and then you sort of iterate from there as you start to interact with the data, interact with the services, when you start to understand what are some of the data payloads in and out that need to be dealt with. So all of those things come into play, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I have one more question. For example, if I am a freelancer and I build workflows for my clients, and who's going to pay the tokens, for example, or if we have WhatsApp API, or if we pay Google, does the client pay these things, or do I need to pay this?
Good question. So typically what I do with client work is I become a user on their n8n instance, and I have them create all the necessary credentials. So whether it's Anthropic, OpenAI, WhatsApp, whatever it is, any service that I will be using to build their solution, I will have them create an account and get me the credentials or set up those credentials for me or give me access to their account as a user or give me their login so that I can set that up for them. So definitely will want to use their accounts, their token fees, because unless you're going to charge them back that token usage, but then that becomes messy.
Yeah. The problem is that mostly they don't know how to set up credentials, but I want to do this on their account, so it's a good idea if they put me in their account.
Yeah, I have had no issues with clients doing that. They'll add me to their Supabase account so that I can go in and get the keys and set that up for them. But some clients are more technically inclined and they can get that set up and they can even set it up in n8n without any problems. So it really depends on the client, but definitely third-party service costs such as AI token use definitely want to be on the client's account so that as you're building, those costs are paid by them. So for example, in this case of this workflow, as you start building, you're going to run a lot of test executions, right? Because you're still building, and that shouldn't be paid by you. It should be paid by the client as you're building it on their account.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so that's how I typically handle the client stuff and I'm pretty straight up shape. I mentioned that pretty early in the relationship as the contracts are being negotiated and finalized. Hosting costs, token costs, third-party costs like WhatsApp, et cetera. Those should all be handled by the client.
Yeah,
Unless
understand.
you have a retainer account with them and you've both decided that those third-party costs will be handled by you and just billed to the client as part of your retainer invoicing or something like that.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I have one more question. Right now, I see a lot of tools and only like AI voice assistants, or for example, n8n viral video maker or something like this. But are there, for example, other ways to earn money with n8n? For example, I saw that we can do with n8n like a SaaS platform, but I think that's not legal with the n8n license.
Depends on what kind of SaaS you're building, because one of the reasons they've set up the MCP access is so that your third-party apps can easily interact with the workflows without you having to build custom code to interact with those workflows. The violation of the license would be if you were to try and build an n8n interface like this and bypass their capabilities without licensing, for example, that software. I think that's a different kind of product. And if that's something you have in mind, you definitely will want to talk to n8n. But if you are interfacing with a workflow and just tapping into a workflow via a trigger, that should be no issue at all. And
Yes,
typically,
understand.
it's a webhook or something, right?
Yeah.
So these trigger options will all trigger the workflow. I think we'll get rid of this, but if you have a SaaS, then you're gonna hit this workflow via a webhook address of some sort, have it do its thing, and then send back. This typically you'd want to respond back. Where's my respond to web? There it is. So here you would say, okay, this is an incoming webhook. Some sort of app has called this webhook. My AI agent will do the work. And then afterwards, it's going to send back whatever data is generated by this AI agent back to that webhook call, which means that, the app that called it will need to have some sort of a webhook address for that incoming data. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. So it's like the webhook, it's like a internet page or something like this, right?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example here, Karim, is, I built this demo app, which is a goal tracking app. If this
A
thing
goal
will run.
tracking app?
A goal tracking app, GOAL. And so when you hit this button here, right, what's going to happen is, let me just save this real quick. I go to workflow. This was a workflow generated by the AI builder inside of n8n. This was a one-shot output from the AI builder. You can see here I have a webhook address and a respond to webhook. And because I clicked on this generate goal button, you can see that it's currently running. So we just triggered this at 8:57 my time. It's running. It typically runs for about 30 to 40 seconds. Let's see if it finishes. So what you're seeing here is a Next.js app that triggered a n8n workflow. This is taking a little bit longer than normal. Let's hope it works still. Should still be working. But, oh, there we go. So that took a quite long time this time. But we have a Next.js app where once I clicked on this button, it triggered an n8n workflow. And you can see here we have 5 goals that were generated based on existing goals for this user account. And it took all of that in and then helped me create this. And you can see here now we should have a completed execution. There we go. So you see, again, it took a little bit longer than what it normally would take, but this is an example of how a SaaS product will interact with an n8n workflow to generate new content for that application.
And this is permissible, right?
What do you mean?
Like when it comes to n8n license.
There's no
Actually,
licensing issue. Why would there be a licensing issue? You've turned your n8n workflow into an API by using it as a webhook, right? So that's one of the whole points of these workflows is to be able to interact with this. The licensing issue will come if you try to build a product like n8n without licensing n8n. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you build a workflow builder like this, interface, then there will be issue. But for you to build a workflow and interact with it either through webhook, either through MCP server, whatever interface it is. So for example, I can enable this in the settings, right? And say, hey, I want this available via the MCP server. And so now if I added this n8n instance as an MCP server to, I don't know, Lovable or to Claude or Claude Code, I can now actually call this workflow, have it do the same thing and return the data back to me, so that it wouldn't actually be the app calling it, but it would be some sort of MCP server call that's been made.
Okay, I understand actually how you can build the workflow, but I don't understand how did you do the design and the purple color and from the webhook link from the website you opened.
Oh, this?
Yeah.
Oh, do you know what Next.js is?
I heard of.
Okay, so it's a React framework, and React is you can learn about React. I think it's react.org. So no, that is not. So React is it's been around for a long time, but Next.js is a framework that was built by Vercel, which I'm sure you've heard of Vercel. So it's a complete React ecosystem. You build a Next.js app and then you publish it to Vercel. And for smaller projects like this demo app, it's pretty much hosting. But I built this Next.js app inside of Claude Code. And this is an example of where we can vibe code something, right? So this whole thing, oops, shoot, that is not font F. Yeah, this whole application that I just showed you guys and the process I went through in creating it, it's a public repository. So I'll post this link for you guys in the chat here. So what I want to point out is that the way I vibe code products or projects is if I go into my docs folder, let me back up a bit. This whole project was for a entrepreneurial group out of USC's Marshall School of Business. And so it was 3 sessions. And the first 2 were where we spent the primary time. And you can see here in our first session, this was my initial PRD, right? So create a PRD for a personal goal tracking web app with the following features. So pretty basic, just a written version of kind of some of the high level things that you were talking about, Karim, right? For example, hey, I want a workflow that does this with this data with these apps, right? And then what a product requirements document. So that's a very common term that's been around for a long time. And so Alex, and again, anytime you want to create something, whether it's an app or a workflow, I highly, highly recommend getting yourself into the discipline of always creating a PRD and by doing so, you're forcing yourself to think through the various components versus just looking at a blank slate, let's say in n8n and going, this is kind of what I want to build. You're going to spend a long time if you do that, just floundering and kind of lost in the woods versus, hey, let's create a prompt or let's create a product requirements document. Let's understand the various components and do that thinking or more of the thinking up front so that as you're building, you get better results over time. And so this was the basic PRD, very, very high level. But what happens after that is now we take it and we have Claude Code expand upon that. So look at the difference between our basic PRD or prompt. And here we have Claude Code walk through and understand, oh, this is kind of what we're building. Here are the key features. Here's a data model. And you're gonna, over course of the calls that we interact with together, you're gonna have me talk a lot about understanding your data model, right? Because when you build, if you don't know the data model, it's kind of like, well, I don't know what data I'm inputting and outputting, right? So to me, the data model along with the PRD are the 2 most important things for any project that you're going to start, right? So you can see here we have a initial data model. What's the model for the goal? Here's a unique ID. the user, title, description, category, and so on. Here's the data model for the user. Here's a tech stack we're going to use, authentication, security. How are we notifying people once their goals are created? Here's the automation, right? Here's the automation that we need to build. And so all of this detail, again, it's thinking through everything. We're thinking through what it is we're building before we even put one single node down.
So I'm a little unclear. Is this what Claude generated for you, or did
This
you?
is Claude Code, which is something I use inside of Visual Studio Code. That's a
Okay.
little bit more on the vibe coding side of the house. May not be familiar with, but you can do the same thing in Claude. You know, if I took this basic PRD in Claude and said, hey, I want to expand this Claude or expand this basic PRD for me and make sure you include the data model, et cetera, and it should get you to this sort of more extrapolated PRD, right?
Wow. Okay. Wow.
So this is an exercise which every time, again, I'm going to drill this into you guys pretty much every time you ask me questions about how to build things, because whether it's a workflow or a vibe-coded application or anything else, if you always start with some sort of PRD, and that PRD also includes a data model, you're going to have better results. So you can see here for the automation, it's kind of understood what needs to be done. And so I took portions of this, and the result here that you guys see, this was a one-shot output from the AI builder, because I spent all this time building the context. And in this case, the context is a product requirements document, the data model, and the understanding of the n8n workflow that needed to interact with the Next.js app here. And the other thing I did here is I went through creating the design system. I went through creating, the color palette, the brand guidelines, all of this, right? And then also you can see here the tech stack I'm using, which is Next.js, etc. here. And then I believe the next sections we were working on, we kind of went further. And here you can see the actual PRD for the workflow itself. So now we have the overall product PRD, but this was specific to the workflow. Again, you see here further detailed information about the goals and the data models, and you see this is exactly the PRD for the workflow. It included all the prompts inside of the AI agent. Make sense? So you guys can, I think this README, let me see the README. Yeah, so this is a pretty good detailed README, but I think, this repository here, you will see a lot of information on how to get things set up. For example, here's an example of a sub-agent inside of Claude Code that was generated to create a go-to-market strategy. So just a good overall example application of Next.js application, an n8n workflow that could interact with that application, and some of the build out process I went through, right? And the way I build things out is I usually document an activity for the day that I'm working on that application. And here in this example, it's 2 separate workshops. But if you go through some of these documents, starting from the first session to the second session, you can see how we sort of built upon, the original starting point, which was this very simple prompt. And then we get to the expanded prompt as well as the, detailed PRD for the n8n workflow. And having all of this, you can now come in and have a single shot output like this without really having to interact further with the AI builder, because it has so much context and information that it knew exactly what it needed to build. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, it makes sense. I tried this with Claude.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was not so good, but actually it's good. But sometimes I don't know. Maybe I prompt wrong. He did mistakes.
Yeah, Karim. So take a look at
fix.
Yeah, take a look at my claude.md file.
Yeah.
Which is sort of it's kind of like the agents.md standard, right? Except this is Claude Code's version of that. Some of the things you'll see here is this section, which is the development guidelines. And these are guidelines that I include pretty much in every single application I build, especially like, KISS and DRY, which are software development principles that have been around for a very long time. So this whole repository it's for a pretty simple app, but it's a great starting point to understand how to set up your project in Claude Code or in Microsoft Visual or any of your IDEs, whether it's Cursor or Visual Studio Code. So start with Claude MD, start with ReadMD, etc. I think I even included the workflow here. Yeah, so the JSON for the workflow is even included here as well. So again, lots of great examples here on how we got to the actual app and the workflow. And I believe I have some videos that were recorded for these sessions. So maybe I'll just the whole thing in the school community for everyone, because especially if you're interested in vibe coding and, we're moving more towards like the integration and merging of these two capabilities where we spent a lot of time building workflows and people are now spending a lot of time doing vibe coding. And now we're sort of merging all of that together. So this whole this whole output from these shops I did are pretty solid. So maybe I'll share all that to the community because I think it's super helpful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand. But I have one more question because right now I don't have the workflow builder n8n, but I think maybe can just the workflow builder n8n, can it do a complete workflow like Claude? Then you don't need Claude anymore.
No, I think you'll always need Claude. It's a different use case, right? Like this AI builder is not going to write PRDs for you.
Yeah, I understand.
So you'll always need Claude or ChatGPT. You need your main chat LLM, if you will, and then if you use vibe coding, then you probably are using, I don't know, Gemini, OpenAI, or Claude to help you code, or some other vibe coding LLM. And then the AI builder in n8n is very specific to just workflows. That's a different functionality versus your sort of general use LLM, which is your ChatGPT and Claude or Perplexity. That makes sense? Yeah. So different uses for these LLMs, but again, I think would it help you guys to see the videos as part of a walkthrough of all of this stuff here that I was going through? Because I think each session was an hour and a half, and they were pretty loaded sessions. So I think I will share that in the school community.
And you say with the development guidelines, it wouldn't make a lot of mistakes, right? Because how can I do like an AI, for example? How do I do this with the development guidelines and this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I don't know how much sort of software engineering experience you have, but some of these things I've put in my Claude MD file are results of me, for the last 7, almost 8 years now doing software engineering, starting with Python and moving on to Next.js. So it's a lot of my experience going into some of these outputs here, and I've just put together this public repository, which again comes with some videos where I walk through where we've built up to these items here in the second workshop. So definitely am open to sharing that with the community because I think it will go a long way.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, there's a lot that I've covered in those videos and in this GitHub repository that, you're going to spend a lot of hours going through this stuff. But I think it's a more sort of smaller version of the way I currently build products and applications. Any other questions?
And you did all this in 3 hours?
Yeah, I spent a little bit of time outside of the workshops preparing. So maybe about 5 to 6 hours, maybe total. Yeah. And a little bit. Yeah. And that included sort of my time with Claude Code, prompting and interacting and making adjustments. The power of AI, trust me. I'm now sort of this power user. I try to get the most out of my LLMs. So
that's what I got to learn.
It's all there. The tools are there for us. Believe me, I love them. Use them every day.
How much do you use open source models?
Very little. I've experimented with Olama. Did I talk about Olama last time? I think I did. Yeah. So in fact, I have Olama installed here on my laptop, but again, it takes a little bit more time to prompt engineer. There's a lot more prompt engineering that goes into it because the LLM itself is more basic and isn't the size that you are normally used to with OpenAI or Chat Anthropic. So so think of it this way. If I have a very focused task, which is, the use case I use my Olama for, where, on my site, I have like 11,000 VO3 video prompts. Right. So I I prompt engineered something for a open source model that was generating video prompts for me, because to spend money to create 11,000 plus video prompts on Claude or OpenAI, I didn't want to pay the money. Where I did get to the point where I was happy with the outputs from the open source LLM, that I was able to just run it. I had my other machine running it. It was generating like 800 prompts every 30 minutes. So it took a long time to get to those 11,000 example prompts, but at least I didn't have to spend any money to generate that because I was using Olama. And it was running on a Mac Mini with an M4 chip, which if you've ever used a Mac Mini with those chips, it's pretty damn good for running these smaller models.
And that's the only way to do it, is to run them on your computer.
I mean, you can spin it up on a VPS somewhere if it has enough power.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it could be any machine. It could, virtual or physical.
And can you pull those into inflows?
Yes, I uploaded those to a n8n database, which is a Postgres database. So all of those prompts are sitting in a database that interact with the Next.js app. So I'll show you an example. So they want AI.co. So if I go here and if I look at these prompts, so all of these 11,202 prompts were generated using open source models. And then as they were generated, they're fed into the database. And this is now a Next.js app that's interacting with that database. And if I go in and you could just copy these prompts and take them into whatever app you might be using to generate VO3. I'm sure you can probably use these for Sora and other video generating apps as well. But again, I did not want to pay to create all of these. And so I trained a open source LLM using Olama and did spend some time doing the prompt engineering to generate that content. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. And can you, when you're building flows in n8n, can you connect to these open source models with a node?
That's correct. So I believe there is a Olama. I think, let's just check, because I don't, in n8n, I only use Anthropic, Perplexity, or OpenAI. So let me see. Oops. Yeah, so you have Olama here. You can message a model. So you can host your Olama somewhere, right? And have it access this, and then whatever models you've installed on that hosted Olama will now be accessible here.
Hey, gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so instead of this AI agent, you're just now calling an Olama server where you can download whichever model you decided to use. And so I think I was telling you that OpenAI open source LLM, I was telling you that, the GPT OSS, these I believe are similar to, they're similar to O4 Mini and O3 Mini, which were pretty good when they were first introduced. So yeah, these two I believe are pretty good. I have tried these and they seem pretty good. It'd be hard for you to run a 120 billion parameter model on a VPS somewhere. So you probably end up using the 20 billion parameter model, and hopefully you got enough juice in your computer or your VPS, whatever you decide to use, to be able to run that. And if you don't have enough juice, what's going to happen is one prompt, one request is going to take a very, very long time. And you're going to end up waiting, and
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm very interested in using the lighter weight models as much as they'll do.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. You might also look at Hugging Face, where there are a ton of open source models there.
What was that?
Hugging Face.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So that might be an option for you. I'm not sure, but that might be an option.
So you mean what do you?
So instead of using Olama, you just interact with the open source model on Hugging Face.
Okay.
Yeah, let them host it. Although some of those I think are third party, but I don't for the use cases I deal with, it's all direct interactions with, again, Anthropic or OpenAI or Perplexity. I rarely go and do Open Router or Hugging Face or Olama in my workflows. And part of it is because I'm always trying to use the latest and greatest, which tends to be the best results.
Gotcha.
More expensive and more power use, right, Alex? But better outputs. All right. Karim, you have any other questions?
No, I have to go too. But
Yeah.
I have one question I want to ask. Where do you live actually in USA?
Oh, I'm in Los Angeles here in California, US. And then Alex, I think you said North Carolina, right?
Right. Up
Yeah.
in the mountains.
Is it? It looks like it's pretty cold out there.
No,
Yeah,
I
was it-
always from the movies and on Netflix, but it wasn't in America yet. Hopefully
Yeah,
soon.
I think Netflix is about 30 minutes from me from here. So I am here in close to Hollywood, etc. So
Yeah.
I'm in Asheville. We got hit by Helene.
gosh, that is not fun. Yeah.
This place
Sure.
looks like a bomb went off. So,
Yeah. I've seen hurricane stations as well. It's not good. Not a good situation. So all right, guys. Well, Alex, good to see you again. And Karim, thanks for joining. Hopefully we'll see you more often. Again, Wednesdays are for everyone in the community, and we have other calls for our premium members. But when you can, please join us here, and we can just talk about stuff that we've discussed today.
great.
All right.
Thank you, Alex. One question. What is Echo? I see these calls about
Echo is a marketing automation system that we built. It's currently about 10 different workflows that goes through brand, audience, competitor analysis. It does a tech audit of your website. It does a SEO audit of your website, and then helps you generate content from all of that audit. It's a full system, and as part of the premium membership, you get access to that whole thing. And I also created a deployer where it will actually deploy the entire system. Currently, it's NoCodeDB, but I'm working on an Airtable version. So all of these workflows, all the database setup in Airtable, basically we do a deployment in one shot. So you don't have to do any manual setup of the entire ecosystem.
So you get your own install of it.
Yeah, it's sort of I have a Creative Commons license for that entire package.
And is that run on n8n?
Yeah, mostly in n8n, but you're going to interact with it in either NoCodeDB or Airtable. It's a pretty robust system that took us quite some time to build, and that's why some folks join the community, because you do get complete access to it. And the whole idea is that once you learn the system, especially if you're running agencies, that you're going to resell that entire thing to other folks, or sell the capability. They're not necessarily going to manage it themselves, but you sell that capability as part of your either SEO or marketing agency. We have a lot of agency folks in our community that have come because of the whole ecosystem.
Is there a video or anything where I can see a walkthrough?
There are videos, but I'm working on the new version, V2.0, where again, we're moving away from NoCodeDB, which is an open source version of Air. And I'm also trying to integrate some of these new functionalities like the MCP and guardrails and things like that. So it's taking a little bit of time, but we're getting there. We're getting close to launching 2.0. So I would wait for that update. Go ahead, Karim.
Okay,
I really need to go out from this call.
Okay.
Right now. Okay, then thank you very much for everything. Okay, then bye.
See you next time. Yep. Yeah, Alex, I would definitely wait for 2.0. It looks like I'm a little bit delayed, but once it's out, I think people will be pretty excited about the updates that I'm working on.
cool. Yeah, I'd love to see a walkthrough of it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something I want to subscribe to.
I
I might save myself some time.
How about this? Like next week, maybe on Wednesday, if you do join again, I can walk you through, the 2.0 version, because there are some big changes.
Okay, great.
All right. Have a good day, Alex.